Have you ever wondered why some of the most powerful people in history were also the most private? In a world that rewards oversharing and attention-seeking, the Stoics lived differently, quiet, calculated, and untouchable. They believed that not everything belongs in the open. Some truths, when exposed, can weaken you. Others, they can destroy you. This video isn't about fear, it's about wisdom. Today, we're diving into 7 secrets you should keep to yourself if you don't want to get killed, inspired by Stoic philosophy. No, not just physically killed, but emotionally drained, mentally sabotaged, socially betrayed, or spiritually exhausted. When you talk too much, when you reveal too much, you give away leverage. And the Stoics, they never handed out power for free. Each of these secrets will challenge how you think, how you speak, and most importantly, how you protect yourself in a world that feeds on vulnerability. So if you're tired of being too exposed, too judged, or too predictable, stay with me. Let's strip the noise, embrace discipline, and reclaim the strength of silence. Because sometimes survival isn't about being louder, it's about knowing when to say nothing. Number 1, your long-term goals. Let them wander. Have you ever shared a dream with someone only to feel the air get sucked out of the room? Maybe they didn't say much. Maybe they raised an eyebrow or offered a backhanded good luck. But suddenly, that fire inside you started to flicker. You walked away questioning whether you should have said anything at all. It's a common trap, announcing your goals before they've had a chance to take root. We live in a world that rewards the declaration more than the execution. Social media has trained us to share before we start, to broadcast every intention, no matter how fragile. But not everything is meant for public consumption, especially your future. I've been there. I once opened up about a long-term vision I had, something I truly believed in. But the reactions weren't what I expected. Some people dismissed it. Others gave polite nods, but their eyes said, "You." And without realizing it, I started to second-guess myself. I hadn't failed yet, but the damage was done. The doubt, once external, had become internal. Here's the truth. When you reveal your goals too early, you invite too many variables into your mental space. Everyone has an opinion, and not all of them are rooted in experience or goodwill. People will unconsciously project their fears onto you, and if you're not grounded, their hesitation becomes your hesitation. Stoicism teaches us that true power comes from within. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Guard your thoughts like you would guard your home. Your goals are seeds. They need time, space, and silence to grow strong." There's also science behind this. Studies show that when we talk about our goals, we feel a premature sense of accomplishment. That small burst of validation can kill the drive to actually follow through. Talking feels like progress, but it isn't. So stay quiet. Let your results do the talking. The Stoic path isn't about convincing others of your direction. It's about walking it with discipline. Let them see the change when it's undeniable. Until then, protect your vision like it's sacred, because it is. And here's something even more powerful. When you don't announce your moves, you free yourself from the pressure to perform for others. You act because it matters to you, not for applause, not for validation. That kind of focus creates unstoppable momentum. In the end, remember this. When the tree bears fruit, no one questions the seed. You don't need to prove your direction to anyone. Let them wonder. Let them speculate. You just keep moving. Number 2, acts of kindness. Do good, tell no one. Imagine this. You're walking down a quiet street just after sunrise. There's no one around. No cameras, no traffic, no one to impress. Ahead of you, a stranger struggles with a heavy bag. You step in to help, not because anyone's watching, not because you want praise, but because it's the right thing to do. The moment is small, almost forgettable, yet it carries weight. You part ways, no words exchanged. That moment, that's what real character looks like. Quiet, instinctive, and unannounced. Now imagine the same moment, but this time with an audience. You bring someone along to film it. You crouch beside the stranger, offer a helping hand, and glance at the camera just long enough to catch the perfect frame. Later that day, it's uploaded, captioned, filtered, and tagged. The likes pour in. People applaud your kindness. But inside, something feels off. The action looked identical, but its soul was missing. Because when the motive is attention, the meaning dissolves. Stoic philosophy doesn't demand that we avoid doing good. It simply asks us to be sincere. Seneca reminds us, a good deed is not lost, even if no one sees it. In Stoicism, virtue is its own reward. The act of kindness doesn't need to be witnessed to be real. In fact, the more invisible it is, the more powerful it becomes. You didn't do it for applause. You didn't do it for image. You did it because you could, and that's enough. The danger of broadcasting kindness is subtle but real. When everything becomes a performance, we stop doing things for their own sake. We trade sincerity for validation. And over time, our sense of morality becomes tied to who's watching. If no one sees, we do nothing. That mindset erodes character. It turns virtue into vanity. And the people who truly need help, they get turned into props. Privacy in this context is more than modesty, it's strength. It's knowing you don't need to prove your heart to anyone. When you give quietly, when you help without posting, when you serve without storytelling, you protect the soul of the action. You're not trying to build a brand, you're trying to build a life that means something. And let's be honest, when your kindness is genuine, you don't feel the urge to announce it. It's satisfying in itself. You sleep better, you walk taller. Not because others saw what you did, but because you know who you are. That's Stoicism in practice. Rooted, self-contained, unimpressed by applause. So next time you feel that impulse to share a good deed, pause. Ask yourself, would I still do this if no one ever knew? If the answer is yes, do it. Then let it go. The world doesn't need another performance. It needs quiet people doing good things for the right reasons. Number 3, your past weaknesses. Not everyone deserves access to your scars. There's a moment in everyone's life when they open up to the wrong person. Maybe it was a night when the weight felt unbearable. Maybe you thought they'd understand. Maybe they said, "You can trust me." So you shared the breakdowns, the regrets, the things you thought you had buried. And for a moment, it felt like freedom, until you saw the look in their eyes shift. Suddenly, your pain wasn't safe anymore. It was information, ammunition. That's the lesson. Not every listener is a safe place. Some people collect stories, not to help, but to hold leverage. Others, too unequipped to deal with their own suffering, will flinch at yours, or worse, twist it. I learned this the hard way. I once confided in someone I considered a close friend, someone I trusted with a vulnerable chapter of my life. I thought I was speaking into empathy, but what I got back was subtle judgment and distant behavior. They repeated parts of my story to others, adding their own slant. And suddenly my truth was no longer mine. It was filtered, diluted, reshaped, and thrown around like gossip. I realized then that trust isn't just about who listens, it's about who protects what you've given them. The Stoics weren't cold, they weren't heartless, but they understood the danger of emotional exposure without discernment. Epictetus taught that we must keep our will in harmony with nature. And part of nature is understanding human limits. Not everyone is capable of holding your truth without judgment, distortion, or carelessness. In a world that encourages vulnerability as currency, this may sound counterintuitive. We're told to be open, be raw, tell your story. But Stoicism reminds us, your story is sacred. Your past is not a confession booth for the unworthy. It's a garden you've grown from. You don't owe anyone a tour of the weeds you pulled just to stand where you are now. This doesn't mean you should hide your journey. It means you should own it in silence until someone proves they can meet it with dignity. Share with the wise. Speak to those who listen with humility, not curiosity. Give your truth to those who've earned it, not to those who merely asked. Because once your past becomes public, it becomes a playground for small minds. They will reduce you to what you once were, not what you fought to become. And every time you revisit those wounds for people who haven't earned that trust, you reopen what should have been healed. So, protect your past. Not out of shame, but out of reverence. You survived things you don't even talk about anymore. That resilience, that's yours. Let them see your strength. They don't need the whole story. And if they ever ask, you can simply say, that chapter is closed. And here's something few will admit. Silence can be a form of healing. You don't always need to narrate your growth for it to be real. In fact, the more you explain yourself, the more you risk others reducing you to something less. Not everything you've endured needs to be understood by someone else to matter. In time, you'll realize that peace doesn't come from being fully known. It comes from being fully centered. And when you no longer feel the urge to justify your past to anyone, that's when you know you've truly outgrown it. Number 4, private family struggles. Some stories are not yours to tell. It was a birthday party, not mine, someone else's. Everyone was laughing, passing plates, talking about work and vacations. Then someone asked, "What was your childhood like?" Just loud enough for the room to quiet. I froze. The question was harmless on the surface, but underneath it was a door I had locked a long time ago. I smiled, gave the safe answer, "It was all right," and I changed the subject. That moment stuck with me, because here's the truth. Not every silence is a lie. Sometimes it's a boundary, a shield, a quiet kind of strength that protects the people who hurt you and the person you've become in spite of it. Family pain is a unique kind of suffering. It's intimate, it's invisible. It shapes how you love, how you trust, how you defend yourself. You grow up in it, often before you have words for what's happening. And by the time you can explain it, you realize that most people wouldn't understand even if you tried. So you carry it, quietly, stoically. I remember the fights, the long silences after, the disappointment that crept into the walls of our house like mold, unseen but everywhere. I remember being a child and realizing I had to manage the emotions of adults. I remember pretending everything was fine in front of guests. That performance taught me something early. The world doesn't need to know everything to respect you. In fact, the more I shared, the more diluted my peace became. The Stoics weren't detached from emotion. They simply knew that publicizing pain rarely heals it. Marcus Aurelius never once complained about his family in his journals. Even though he lived in a palace full of pressure, betrayal, and dysfunction, he focused inward. His rule, his discipline, his restraint. That's not suppression. That's protection of dignity, of legacy, of peace. People today are too quick to air every grievance, every family secret to strangers or social media followers. But Stoicism teaches you, just because something happened to you doesn't mean it belongs to everyone else. Some wounds don't need an audience. They need a garden to grow over them. And besides, once you share your family pain too freely, it becomes entertainment for others. They'll pity you maybe, or weaponize it, or use it to box you in. That's the danger of handing sacred things to unworthy hands. Your family's imperfections aren't yours to parade. Even when they've hurt you deeply, there's honor and restraint. But don't mistake silence for denial. You can face your past privately while still rising above it publicly. You can forgive people who never apologize. You can build a life so full of purpose that the echoes from your upbringing get smaller with each step forward. That's not hiding. That's healing with honor. In the end, your peace is a boundary. Your silence is a form of protection. And when the time comes, you'll know who's earned the right to know more and who's better left outside the door. Until then, let the world meet you at your calm, not at your chaos. Number 5, guard your digital identity because not all attacks come with a face. Imagine someone quietly walking behind you all day, listening to your calls, reading your notes, watching what you buy, where you go, who you love, and what keeps you up at night. Now imagine that you invited them in. That's what we do when we leave our digital life wide open. When we overshare online, use weak passwords, ignore privacy settings, or treat our data like it's harmless. But the Stoic doesn't treat anything about himself as casual. He knows what's known can be used. And in today's world, your digital identity is often more exposed than your physical one. Your emails, your habits, your preferences, even your silence. These can all be tracked, sold, or weaponized. The Stoics preached self-possession. But in the digital age, self-possession means data possession. If someone else controls your information, they control a part of you. Picture this. A man brags online about a big investment win. Days later, someone impersonates him using leaked email credentials. In under a week, his accounts are drained, and his name is flagged for fraud. He never saw a thief, but he left the door wide open. Not through his wallet, but through his Wi-Fi. Every click, every scroll, every agree to terms is a decision. But most people don't treat it that way. They treat digital space like air, free, invisible, and harmless. But in reality, you're building a blueprint of your life, one that others can access without your permission. Hackers don't need to break in if you've already opened the door with every careless post or unsecured connection. The Stoic isn't just cautious, he's intentional. He doesn't hide because he's afraid. He guards because he understands value. You are the gatekeeper of your own fortress, and in today's world, that fortress is built on passwords, privacy settings, and self-control. The wise man defends not just his reputation, but his digital presence, because both are reflections of his inner discipline. This isn't paranoia, it's principle. Seneca warned, "The greatest empire is to be emperor of oneself." That empire now includes your phone, your cloud, your history. The quiet Stoic doesn't just lock his door. He locks his mind, his speech, and his search history. Because strength today doesn't just come from muscle or willpower, it comes from digital discipline. Number 6, hide what hurts you. Because some wounds must be guarded. Imagine this, you're in a crowd. Everyone is laughing, talking, moving in every direction, but you've been stabbed, not physically, but in the heart, in the mind, somewhere no one can see. You're bleeding on the inside, but you stand tall, no one notices. And strangely, that becomes your power, not your weakness. Because when you hurt quietly, you keep your strength intact. When you wear your pain too publicly, the world learns exactly where to press, twist, and reopen what you've barely healed. People think vulnerability is always power, but that's not what the Stoics believed. Vulnerability is only powerful when it is voluntary and when it serves your growth, not someone else's curiosity. Marcus Aurelius endured betrayal, illness, and loss. Yet his meditations weren't a broadcast of suffering. They were private notes of endurance. He wasn't hiding his pain out of shame. He was protecting it from exploitation. Here's the truth I had to learn. Not everyone deserves to know where you ache. I once opened up to the wrong person, shared something raw, too early. I thought they'd understand. They didn't. Instead, they used it later in an argument, like a weapon. That's when I realized what hurts you most should be wrapped in discipline, not desperation for empathy. There's a quiet kind of healing that happens when you carry pain like armor instead of a banner. When you work in silence, cry in solitude, and still show up with grace. That's not weakness. That's a storm disguised as calm. And the Stoic doesn't run from the wound, but he does refuse to make it a spectacle. Think of a cracked vase repaired with gold. In Japanese kintsugi, the damage is not hidden, but it's not rushed into the open either. It's only shown after it has been transformed. The crack no longer bleeds, it shines, but only once it's healed. Stoicism invites us to do the same, not to pretend the break didn't happen, but to wait until you've turned it into something beautiful before revealing it. When you learn to guard your inner pain, you develop a presence that doesn't beg for pity, it commands respect. People sense something deeper in you. They don't know what you've endured, and that mystery becomes your quiet influence. Pain doesn't define you, but how you carry it, how little you let it leak, that's what sets you apart. Number 7, speak through your results. Because words fade, but proof remains. Imagine 2 men starting from nothing. One tells the world what he's about to do, how he's going to rise, change his life, build an empire. He gathers attention, drops hints, posts updates, and gets early praise for intentions alone. The other says nothing, no announcements, no declarations. He simply begins. Months pass. One is still talking. The other is building in silence. And then one day, without warning, the quiet one arrives with results that need no explanation. His life speaks. His work speaks. The difference? One invested in noise. the other invested in proof. This is the Stoic way, to value quiet progress over loud promises. The world praises momentum, but often it rewards restraint. The Stoics knew that what you do is who you are, not what you say you'll do. As Epictetus put it, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In modern terms, don't post the plan, post the product. Imagine your progress as a shadow. When you chase attention, you move toward the light, and the shadow vanishes. But when you walk into your craft, your discipline, your long hours, your shadow stretches behind you. That's your legacy, a trail of results that follows you long after you've left the room. Your loudest moment should be your quietest entrance. The day you don't need to say a word because your presence announces what you've done. That's real influence. Not hype, not followers, but work that survives inspection and speaks in your absence. Results are currency in a world drowning in words. Talk is cheap, not because language is weak, but because it's overused. Empty declarations have numbed the ears of the audience. But real progress, solid, visible, earned, cuts through the noise. People don't remember who planned to change. They remember who did. This is why the Stoic cultivates silence, not from fear, but from focus. Discipline doesn't explain, it delivers. There is no need to argue with critics, no need to clarify your next move. You build, you finish, you arrive. And when it's done, you don't brag. The results do it for you. So many waste their power trying to prove they're on the way up. But the Stoic understands. When you're truly rising, you're too busy climbing to shout. Let others speak, let others watch. Your job is to become undeniable without announcement. When they finally notice, it'll be because the work left no other option. Because in the end, it's not about being seen, it's about being real. Not about being praised, but about being grounded. Results aren't just proof to others, they're reminders to yourself that you chose the long road, the disciplined road, the silent road, and you never needed applause to keep walking it. You don't need to correct your critics. You don't need to forecast your next big move. Just deliver. Let your growth arrive unannounced. Let your results walk in like thunder, unexpected but undeniable. And when they ask how you did it, you won't need to say anything. The answer will already be standing in front of them. In a world obsessed with attention, the Stoic path is different, quieter, stronger, and far more dangerous to ignore. These 7 secrets aren't just about protection, they're about power. When you guard your thoughts, your location, your pain, and your progress, you don't shrink, you sharpen. You don't hide, you harden. Remember, silence is not weakness, it's a strategy. So speak less, move wisely, and let your results do the talking. Because in the end, what you don't reveal can never be used against you. Stay grounded, stay private, stay stoic.